heart's been running miles, chasing every burden, wearing every smile. But all my trying only leaves me dry till I hear you whisper, child, in me abide. You are my Sabbath, Jesus, I rest in you. All of my striving falls at your feet, made new here in your presence, nothing left to prove. You are my Sabbath, Jesus, I rest in you. You finished every battle, you spoke, it's done and paid. You carry what I couldn't, you walked out of that grave. So why would I keep running like it's all on me when your nail-scarred hands have already set me free? You are my Sabbath, Jesus, I rest in you. All of my striving falls at your feet, made new here in your presence, nothing left to prove. You are my Sabbath, Jesus, I rest in you. I lay it down, I lay it down, every fear, every crown at your feet right now. Oh, I breathe you in, I'm breathing out my doubt. You are my peace, my soul's forever found. You are my Sabbath, Jesus, I rest in you. All of my striving falls at your feet, made new here in your presence, nothing left to prove. You are my Sabbath, Jesus, I rest in you. Here in your presence, Jesus, I rest in you. Yeah, yeah. You are my Sabbath, all of my rest is you.
Welcome, friends. Hey, it is good to have you. I hope Jesus is your Sabbath. We are going to be talking about that topic today. Cannot wait for this. Excited. This is going to be a little bit different. So I am going to post in just a second a link. I'll pin it if anyone wants to join and have a conversation about this. But I do have a friend, a guest, a co-host, a partner in crime. I don't know. We'll call them all kinds of stuff. That we're going to have a little fun today. So I'm excited to bring him into, he's sitting in the studio, looking chill, looking good. I think he's got the best, at least I think Google Gemini said he has the best setup for live stream. So we'll see. I don't know. AI is supposed to be correct about everything. So at least most of my Adventist friends are using AI now to prove me wrong. So there's that. Well, let's do a couple of things first as we get started. I do want to remind you all that we have something special happening this week. I will be getting this. I think if I look at my calendar right, I didn't even look before I jumped in today. Is it Tuesday? Mark your calendars, Tuesday at 4:30. Now, last time Dr. Johnson got snowed in. Hopefully everything's good this time and we'll be good to go. But as far as I know, everything is a go for this. So Tuesday, 4:30, you'll see. Just subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified. So excited to have this conversation. This will play well, actually, into the discussion that we're going to have today about the Sabbath, because, well, some people feel very strongly about the Sabbath and its tie to the law. So we're going to have that conversation today, and then we'll follow it up on Tuesday with this conversation with Dr. Johnson. You should get the book. You should read it. It is well worth your time. All right. Well, I don't think I have too much more from a intro standpoint. Let's get our friend in here. Tyler, how you doing, man? Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted. There we go.
I'm excited to be here, Mike. Yeah, sorry. I muted it on my side as well. So anyway, yeah, it's good to be here.
Great. It's good to have you. I am going to post in, let's see. I don't know if I can do this. I think, all right. I think I posted it in the chat. I'm going to pin it to the top.
Yeah, I see it.
All right, good. Now, here's the thing. Today, we're going to be conversing about the Sabbath. That is the topic. We're not going to side trail into all kinds of other things. We would welcome anyone and everyone to have an open conversation. This is candid conversation, so we are going to be very candid. I do have a bunch of stuff we can work through today if we don't have any others that want to join, which is fine.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm just excited for this topic. When I saw that you posted about, inviting discussion around the Sabbath. It's such a big issue for the Adventists that I know and love, and I'm excited about what you've prepared.
Tell us. I'm curious. Tell us a little bit about your background. Maybe people don't know exactly who you are.
Sure. Yeah. I was a Seventh Adventist for the first 39 years of my life, and I about a year and a half ago, my wife and I decided that after about a year and a half of intense study from a realization that there might be a gospel problem in Adventism, and that threw us into a lot of study. After about a year and a half of that, we decided to exit Adventism officially, and we have since when we did, we put it out there pretty online.
I remember watching your video. I remember that.
The post, like, announcing that I was leaving. Yeah, I didn't know you back then, that's for sure. But I put it out because I used to be a Seventh Adventist pastor, and I wanted to just kind of let people know so they didn't feel like they heard in the rumors that I had, left. I wanted them to know that I had and where my heart was. And I got quite a response from that. And Peter Dixon from SDA Q&A saw the post and reached out to me. and on like day 2 after the post and said, I want to have you on my show. Can you come on? And so I went on exactly 1 week after I had posted that. And I have spent the last year and a half having lots of conversations with people from my years as an Adventist and a few new.
Yeah.
And yeah, talking about the gospel.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't put two and two together that you were a pastor. I think I knew that.
I was an associate pastor. I
Yeah.
was on the ordination track, but I never went through to
Sure.
ordination. And I've worked for 3 conferences in Virginia, Central California, and Upper Columbia, my home conference. And yeah,
So it's probably fair to say that you probably don't understand any of the Adventist doctrines, right?
yeah, ugh. Yeah, that.
I mean, clearly
that is
you left
leveled.
and you don't understand it, right?
Yeah, the difficulties that leaving has caused. I don't think anybody would leave on merely or just leave to make a point.
Yeah.
I left on doctrinal grounds, and it has come at the cost. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
It has cost something.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's issues that, I hope for all Adventists that they would know the assurance that they can have that salvation is theirs if they put their trust 100% in Christ and what Christ did.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that assurance as
Yep.
an Adventist. And so
Yeah.
that's why I speak loudly, just to
Yeah.
encourage more people to go on that journey towards assurance.
Yeah. It's interesting. Different journeys that people have. I mean, most people know my journey. I mean, it was over 40 years. I think it was 43, maybe 42. You know how those stories, how they grow?
They grow. Yeah.
I was in Adventist for 890 years, right? Oh, it was over 40 years. Time seems to pass a whole lot quicker now that our girls are going to be 16 this year. And goodness gracious. But yeah, I mean, an Adventist of all Adventists, my dad was a career Adventist pastor in the most conservative conference, Michigan Conference. Pretty much his whole career. My wife and I met at Great Lakes Adventist Academy in Cedar Lake. GLA. Yep. Many are aware of the Campus Sable up there. We were camp counselors at Campus Sable.
Oh yeah.
I got very fond memories of that.
I worked in summer camp for 13 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Love summer camp.
We weren't that long. We were both camp counselors for a couple of years, kind of around the 17, 18, 19, that time period, if I remember right. And then went to Southern. We both graduated from Southern. I was initially going to be a pastor. Then I was like, nope, that ain't going to happen. And went down the math route, and I've got a degree in piano performance. And anyways, was a teacher and this, that, whatever. I mean, deacon, head elder.
Played on all the Steinways there on campus.
Yes.
All Steinway campus. I am also an alum of Southern Adventist University, so
there you go.
I got to spend some time there. I started out Walla Walla. That's where I went to high school at the academy.
At least you didn't attend that liberal Loma Linda.
Nope, never made it down there. I applied for a job there once, but
yeah. So, well, I know that the audience probably knows now at least they know a little bit of both. If they didn't know my background at all, I would encourage, by the way, if you are not members of the channel, by the way, like, subscribe, all that stuff. It feels weird self-promoting. That's one thing I've had to get used to.
Let me do it, guys. Like and subscribe to Mike and the Thinking Cup. Get on the Discord if you haven't already.
Yes,
it's a great community. He's a great teacher. You want to follow his content.
I love it. I love it. I put in the upper corner there, I put the QR code. I don't ever remember if it's going to be flipped or if it's going to be not. I can't remember. I always say upper right corner of your screen. But yeah, we're going to work through some stuff. Have no need to get through all of it. We may have several of these conversations. This is just a very candid conversation. I have done a massive amount of research and study. Those of you that don't know me, I'm a very deep thinker, and my wife has told me that most people don't think like me. Most people don't care to think the way I think. That doesn't mean I'm right. Let me be very, very clear. It doesn't mean I'm always right. It just means I like to think very logically and deep and coherent. I am currently getting my master's at DTS, which is a THM program, which is actually a 120-hour course or classwork. It's called a mini PhD because when you get through that program, you can effectively get a doctorate from anywhere. You can pretty much, as long as they'll kind of supervise your doctoral work, you can. So, but just a deep thinker and a lover of, honoring the text for what it is, which is kind of what got me in trouble with Adventism, because you can't really go certain places in the Adventist world or else you'll disagree with, this elephant in the closet, which is Ellen White. You'll disagree with all these other things. So today we're just going to have a conversation about Sabbath. And I see some might want to come on. You're welcome to come on and ask questions, engage. The link should be pinned if you're watching on YouTube. But I'll kind of get us started initially. And then once we get into, I'm really hoping that, I think one of the biggest challenges with having a conversation about Sabbath is everyone comes to this discussion with a preconceived notion of what Sabbath is. Whether it's, how we worship on Sabbath, whether it's physical, whether it's a literal day, some people are triggered by Sabbath. Some people, have different experiences with what you can and can't do. Most of us don't understand even what the Jewish Sabbath even looked like, how it functioned, from an Israelite standpoint. And it's got a long history, a super long history.
Maybe not as long as some people think.
Yeah. So but it has caused, I think it's caused a lot of debate. It's caused a lot of division. It's there's more confusion in the church on this particular topic. You'll have people that from different walks of life looking at, or theological frameworks that look at Sabbath in very different ways. My job and goal here is to try to honor the text for what it is as we go through it. I'm not exaggerating. We're talking about a big topic here, and we're not going to get through all of this, as we interact. I know that we'll have some people kind of joining as you're in the green room at the right time. I'll kind of bring you in. So be patient as we bring you in and deal with some of the questions that you might have. Good to see you, Mary, by the way. I see you in the green room there. Now, this really, as we get into this, I'm going to set the stage. This really isn't about like Saturday versus Sunday. I think people pit. Go ahead, man. You're good.
No, I was just going to say, I'm so glad that is where you are starting, because that's
I think that's the common thing that happens. Like, oh, so you're not a Sabbath keeper, like as if you're less than, or like, or if you're an Adventist and you're looking on the outside, it might be like, oh, like we understand the truth about Sabbath, and those people out there, well, they just bless their heart. They're doing the best they can with what they know. They'll only be judged on what they know, that whole mentality.
Salvation by ignorance. Yeah.
So this isn't about Sabbath versus Sunday. Okay. What we're going to kind of work through, and some of the questions that are coming in, we'll kind of work through some of this. I hope that some of this will challenge all of our assumptions, because we all have them. Okay. It isn't, one thing I've learned, Tyler, is good biblical study is not about coming to the text with no bias. That's impossible.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. It's coming to the text and recognizing what your bias is, being aware of it. Okay.
Maybe being open to there being biases that you don't even realize, and acknowledging that that's a possibility.
Yep. 100%. 100%. So we're going to acknowledge some of the biases. I'm sure that as we engage in some of the questions, you may see some biases. That's just part of the conversation. We're going to have a candid conversation about it. So before I go too much further, I'm going to actually invite our first guest in. Let's see if we can do this correctly.
Whoa. Hey, Mary.
Mary.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
How is Michigan?
Cold, and the wind has just picked up.
Well, it's good to see you. You look like you're on the road traveling, so it's good to have you.
Just got off work and picked up my grandson.
I love it. Well, what kind of question do you have?
Well, basically, I guess, what is the Sabbath? Being in the Seventh-day Adventist like we were, you get that's the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's your take on it? What does it mean? What does the Sabbath mean? What do you do? What do you not do?
Yeah.
And should I get out of that mentality of thinking?
No, so what is it? What should I do? What should I not do? How do I keep Sabbath?
Right.
Is Sabbath different? Is it the same? If it's the same, how do I do that? I'm not a Jew. I don't know. Most people probably listening aren't Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a great question. Actually, we will cover some of that as we go through this. So I'm glad you asked that question.
I
Awesome.
like it.
I can't wait for the answer.
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
I love it. So I'm gonna pull you out of the kind of the on stage, and then I'm gonna address some of those questions, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks.
I love it. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate you tons. Thanks for being a part of Discord too. Like, thanks for just plugging in. I know that you've been on our study sometimes. Like, thank you. I appreciate that.
I hope you move them to Saturday.
Well,
or at least every other.
Our next one actually is next Saturday morning, 7:30 to 9 o'clock.
Awesome.
So we're doing this rotation now every other week. I know it might seem complicated. So we're going to do Friday, and then the next week we're doing Saturday, and then we do Friday and then Saturday, because we hold a church kind of Bible study here at our house every other Saturday. And so whatever weeks that is, I can't do it in the morning. So yeah.
All right.
So you'll be able to plug back in.
Yay.
Awesome. All right. We'll get to that question in just a second. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Love it.
So what is the Sabbath?
What is the Sabbath?
It's kind of a question of what is it? What type of thing is it?
Yep.
I'm curious your thoughts.
So here's the way I kind of think about this. The way you engage in that question, I'm going to try to time warp back into different segments of history. We're asking that question February 6, 2026.
Okay.
What would the response be if you were a Jew before the Messiah came? In fact, you might be a Jew expectant, maybe even a Jew from the exile, or maybe you're a Jew currently in Egypt, enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
Which, let's think about this for a second. When did the slavery happen for the Israelite nation?
If I recall, it was when the Pharaoh that had given them Goshen had died, and a Pharaoh came up that didn't know Joseph or any of the story.
No. Was the Sabbath commandment given before, from a law standpoint, was it given before or was it given after they were enslaved by the Egyptians?
It's a highly contested question in some circles, but Exodus 16 is the first mention, which is after. Exodus 16 would be the first mention of Shabbat.
Yeah, so let's go to that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to...
If you need to drop me off the screen, feel free.
No, you're good. You're good, actually. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, Exodus 16. So if you just think through the history of the Israelite nation, the time period, right? The whole congregation of Israelites set out. So if you think about the narrative, the whole congregation complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. They were looking back and talking about they had come out of Egypt. And so when you get the first introduction to the Sabbath, which is actually a pre-Mosaic covenant, right? Before it was given on Mount Sinai, we do see a reference with regards to the manna, the incident with the manna.
Yeah.
We see that reference coming in. I'm just scrolling through the text here real quick because I didn't have it immediately. See if you can find where let no one leave it. Right here. So this is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy, and then we have a holy Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
So many what we would call Sabbatarians, people that view the seventh-day Sabbath in a very specific way, their argument is that Sabbath is pre-Mosaic. And that's not wrong, okay? In fact, you can tie it all the way back to creation. It's not the exact same thing, but the concept of rest is in creation. And in fact, Exodus 20 actually references that the whole function and purpose of Sabbath in the giving of the commandments or the law to Moses. Part of the reason for the Sabbath was to remember creation, to remember the creation aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is, everything you know about keeping Sabbath currently, because most of us aren't Jews, were they able to keep the Sabbath being enslaved in Egypt?
They wouldn't have been able to. No. Right?
Not in the same way, I don't think, right? I mean, they didn't have a temple. They didn't have priests to light. There were specific requirements that they had to do.
Certainly. All of the Sabbath requirements, yeah.
And there's no real, we don't have a lot of evidence of what happened in the slavery, okay, in the Egyptian slavery. But we don't have any evidence anyways that Pharaoh was like, oh yeah, you can take this seventh day off, and do your thing. Again, there's no biblical evidence. And again, that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. All I'm saying is if we're going to let the text speak for what it is, we don't have any evidence that there was Sabbath keeping going on in the Egyptian slavery.
In fact, I would maybe, if I'm remembering right, there's the passage where Moses first came and asked Pharaoh to let the people go, and Pharaoh's response is, you just want to get a rest for your people. You just want to go rest.
Yeah.
So that would maybe indicate that having rest days was not something he was interested in.
Yep. So I bring that up because the question was, well, what is Sabbath? Well, if you think about, here we have a nation that's enslaved. It's enslaved by what later will become one of the kind of the epitomes of what you would understand as an antichrist kind of like Babylon, Egyptian, empires were seen as anti-Yahweh. They served other gods. They weren't, they weren't honoring to. So, so in that regard, as anyone that's a Sabbatarian, meaning, and every Sabbatarian's a little bit different, meaning, well, it's in the law, you have to keep it. Like if that's if that's how you understand Sabbath,
right?
Then, and you're thinking coherently about it, then the argument would be, well, none of the Israelites were keeping it while they were enslaved. So how would they be able to be, righteous and saved by Yahweh if they were dishonoring him on a day that supposedly is like eternally, existent and moral and all this stuff that I think many times, not all Sabbatarian groups, but specifically the Seventh Adventist Church believes that the Sabbath is eternal. It's not only been in existence since creation, which we do have evidence that that's probably a good statement, but they go further than that and say it's pre-creation and it will be post second coming.
Yeah.
That it is an absolute eternal thing. Okay. So the one thing, just as I kind of address the question, the one thing I would say is I find it helpful to sit and think about how did Sabbath function during different, people freak out when you say dispensations because they think dispensationalisms.
Yeah.
But just during different historical time periods, during the narrative, the narrative of Scripture, what was it like for Abraham? Hey, y'all know that Abraham was not Jewish, right? He was a pagan.
Yeah.
Abraham did not know anything about the Sabbath. There's no biblical evidence. Now you could surmise, you could assume, right? You could force the text to, oh well, yeah, because maybe it says that, well, he kept, the commands of God. Oh, that must be, like, you can infer, but again, there's nothing that the text would really require you to conclude that a pagan from a totally different nationality and ethnicity, okay, he's from Ur of the Chaldeans,
Yeah, a Babylon area
would have any reason to keep any Sabbath. And again, that doesn't mean he's immoral. It doesn't mean just because he didn't keep the Sabbath doesn't mean that he's out there killing and dishonoring his parents and like all that, because that's the way that most Sabbatarians argue with regards to the law. Is they'll say, well, oh, so you're saying that if the Sabbath isn't important, I can go out and kill now?
Yes.
No, Again, this is not like pitting days against each other. That's not what this topic is about. Okay.
Do you feel like what in that idea of like what is the Sabbath? Do you feel like it is a moral thing? Is it a moral and ceremonial thing, or is it just ceremonial?
Yeah.
And is something I've wondered about, and I want to know your thoughts. Is it typological?
Mm,
Like, what was it? Like, was the thing in Genesis 2, God's rest at the end of creation, a
yeah.
one for one with the fourth commandment? Or is it just they're typologically related? Like that's
Yeah.
a Sabbath, and then here's another Sabbath, and they share some sort of nature.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So I love that you brought up the connection to creation. So the concept of Shabbat, which we're not going to go into like a big language discussion, but Shabbat just means rest.
Right.
Okay. So when you combine Shabbat with a day, it means you're resting on that day is what it means. Like if you're just like linguistically to look at what it is. Okay. But Shabbat doesn't necessarily need to mean a specific, like the Sabbath. It can mean just rest. It can
Yeah.
mean ceasing from work. Okay. So when we get to, yes, Schley, that is correct. It is cessation. Yes. So when we read, by the way, we're going through in a men's group, we're going through Genesis, and I'll show this for everyone because this is kind of the way I geek out on stuff. Okay. I printed it off and I'm like, man, I want to go through and look at all the verbs and the subjects and kind of see what connects with what with regards to the creation account. This is just chapter 1. This took me about an hour to do, by the way. And I had Logos on the screen over here with a specific type of resource that deals with the original language and tells you what the predicates and all the things and the blah blah, all that stuff that I'm hoping I'll know after I'm done with my master's. But I need something to help me right now. So when we look at the text, okay, remembering that Shabbat is cessation of work, it's ceasing is what it is.
Yeah.
So we get to chapter 2, thus the heavens and the earth were finished in all their multitude, and on the 6th day God finished his work. Okay, there we go. Who's working? It's God, right?
Right.
God's the one that's working. Humans aren't working here. Again, this is the 6th day. So when you're thinking about the creation account, like this is at some point during this day, again, whether or not you're a young earther, an old earther, a literal day, and not literal, like, again, that's a whole nother discussion. God's the one working. Okay. That he had done. And what did he do? This is where we get the concept of rest. Now you'll see it right down here. It says that's the SBT. It's Shabbat. It's to cease. So what did he cease doing?
Creating, right?
Yes, but here's what's interesting. Now, thinking about, just remember in the back of your head when you think about Sabbath, your construct of Sabbath, okay, we're not doing, a lot of the times as an Adventist, it was everything I did during the previous 6 days, I'm not doing, like I'm ceasing from, okay? Sure. So God created the previous 6 days. Did he not create on the 7th?
I mean, I guess some might say he created a special time period, like created a holiday of a sorts, perhaps you could say. Is that what you're thinking?
So, well, if we keep reading, so he rested, he ceased on the 7th day from all the work that he had done. So everything he had done in the previous 6 days of creation, all the stuff that he had done, he no longer did any of that creating. He wasn't like adding another species or another this, or like, that was done. But on the seventh, what did he do? He didn't just sit around and do nothing. It says, so God
creation?
blessed. So even like on that day, he was doing, he still was a part of the creating, but he was blessing, is what he was doing. He blessed it. He hallowed it. That means he made it holy, because on it, why? Why did he bless it? Well, because on it, he rested from the previous creation work that he did. Now, side question. Does God get tired?
Does he need to be refreshed? Yeah.
So like, again, I want everyone that's thinking about this concept of Sabbath, I want you to think about, like, why do I see it this way? Why do I perceive it in the way I do? Okay. God doesn't need to take a break. He doesn't have to not create. He can create any day he wants, whenever he wants. Okay. There's no, like, he's God, right? There's a reason why he's setting up the rhythm that he's setting up. And I'm going to do a little bit of a steal the show. All of this will come full circle when we have the incarnation of Christ.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. So like whatever's going on at creation and all the stuff that's happening and the new creation that's being created, like all this stuff is, and the short answer is yes, it's typified. Like there's many times in scripture where the same type of cycle where you get a new creation, it kind of doesn't work. It has to be recreated like this, and there has to be this cycle of rest. We get this actually with like the flood narrative. There's lots of reasons that this, I would say, symbolically was supposed to remind, again, what does Exodus 20 say? Why were they supposed to keep the Sabbath? I say they. Why were the Jews?
Are you talking about the 4 statement? 4 in 6 days?
So here we have, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Okay. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work. You, nor your sons, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your livestock, all these, 4. And this is why. For in 6 days, it's supposed to remind you of you are created. You are not the creator. It's the whole function of, on a cycle, on a regular cycle, you need to cease from doing your creating. It's called work.
Yeah.
To remember that you are not the creator. You are the created. I am God.
We are recognizing maybe that we have to trust in him, in his provision.
Yep.
Would it be worth looking at Deuteronomy 5 and what the 4 statement is there?
Yeah. So before I go there, because you asked a question about, is it moral or not? And this is a really important question, I think. I mentioned this on the interaction with Clinton Baldwin.
Yeah, which I love.
That guy's fun. Yeah. It's fun because when he gets really excited, it's harder to understand him because his Jamaican accent comes out. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's like, I love that. I love it. Yeah. So the question becomes, okay, before we have any discussion around whether or not we are allowed, whether or not the ancient text allows division of laws. Okay, again, you need to come to this next week, okay? Because we're going to talk all about the law and like all that stuff. But what I don't even think you're supposed to categorize laws. Okay. It's helpful in that it helps us kind of from a research kind of standpoint to kind of put things in certain buckets. But this is part of the reason why in James, the argument is if you break one, you break them all. He's not just talking one of the 10 commandments.
Right.
It's it's a theocratic system that when you're in covenant with Yahweh, by the way, which meant that you were also, the male was circumcised. That's the sign. Okay. You're in covenant with Yahweh. Now that you're in covenant with Yahweh, you must abide by his theocratic system. That theocratic system is not the Decalogue.
Yeah.
It's all of them. It's
one unit.
And honestly, there are some things that get discussed that you're like, well, how does that even work? Right? When it says you shouldn't work. Well, the first thing, we're going to talk about this next week with Dr. Johnson. When it says in the text, okay, you understand this is a really important command. Don't work. You know what the penalty for breaking this command is if you were a Jew, an Israelite? Death.
Not this.
Like this isn't
stoning.
like, oh, Tyler, I kind of like, I didn't realize. I'm sorry. So it's not, so you should immediately be going, well, what does not working look like? And then, it's not just me. Do you notice what the text says? You, your son, your daughter. Oh, wait, you're allowed to have slaves? I thought slavery was immoral. But yet the Decalogue allows some sort of servitude. It's not the same as the slavery that we understand it, but it allows some sort of being connected to, okay. Oh, but also your livestock. How do your livestock not work? How does that work? What happens if like a cow decides to work on its own? What do you do?
Dog starts digging holes.
So the whole point that I'm bringing this up is it doesn't tell you all of that. Because it's a theocratic system that you were supposed to ask yourself, wait a second, is this honoring? Am I doing? Maybe I need to counsel with the priest. Maybe I need to, that's the whole methodology and process of kind of the way it works. So back to the moral question. I think it would be fair to say that if you deem something moral, okay, it is morally right to keep someone alive. It is morally wrong to kill them, to murder someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with you so far.
All right. Now, there are other areas that someone would say, well, that's not really moral or immoral. Okay. Most people would agree that committing adultery, okay, as a married man, if I were to go and have an affair on my wife, that's not moral. That's immoral.
Yeah.
Because it's moral to honor my marriage relationship. Now, what does that look like? Again, inside of every marriage, it's a relationship, right? But most would agree that they're not going to say, yeah, you can just go do whatever you want with anyone at any time. It doesn't really matter. And then deem that person as, wow, they're really moral. Okay. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah. I'm tracking with you.
So the question then becomes, I'm going to give the Adventist position that they believe that the Sabbath is eternally moral.
Right.
Pre-creation, post-creation, and in all of eternity. It is a moral commandment. Okay? Now, if that's true, if you're following that line of thinking, then the only conclusion that you can have is if you are not keeping the Sabbath, you are immoral.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you know. Like, you can't go to, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to, like, I didn't know that it wasn't okay
Yeah.
to go have sex with another woman. Like, I didn't know that. It doesn't matter if you know or not. If something is deemed moral, it is, no matter the time, the ethnicity, the historical time period, the location, how old you are, how young you are, it's moral.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring this up is all of the times you run into people in Scripture with pagans that are not Israelites. A good example would be like Nahum, the guy that like came to the prophet and got dunked 7 times. Okay. He was Naaman. Sorry, not Nahum. Naaman.
Yeah.
Thank you. He was a pagan. In fact, he was the servant of the king for another god that it actually says in the text that he would, that the king would kind of lean on him and he would take him into the temple
Right.
of another god. So here we have a Gentile pagan individual that came and was healed by a Yahweh prophet, a follower of Yahweh, that we have no reference in any of the narrative that he goes back and he's now keeping the Sabbath. In fact, it'd be impossible for him to keep the Sabbath. He's not Jewish. He's not in the Jewish camp. There's no temple. There's no, he can't. He's actually facilitating the king to be in another temple of another god.
Yeah.
So I know I'm getting a little overboard on this as far as the explanation, but the point I'm making is if it actually is a moral commandment, then an Adventist can't say, oh, all those people that worship on Sunday, it's fine now, but when the Sunday law comes, you can't have well, it isn't now, but it is then. That's not a moral law.
Yeah. That's an establishment of a regulation, and those are the sorts of things that happened with this, what is often called the ceremonial aspects of the law.
It's more ritual and ceremonial than it is moral.
Yeah.
Now it has principle, it has typology, it has theology in it.
Absolutely.
But we know that the law changed. Well, what do I mean by that?
But I heard that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. How could his law change?
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up because that's bringing in, it's an interesting fallacy that people make. God doesn't ever change.
Right.
But don't conflate laws that he sets up for his relationships and an engagement with his creation as, that can never change. And what do I mean? Well, let's go to, this is the first, Exodus 20 is the first giving of the law. Okay. So we have creation account, which is the first time we see Shabbat. It's specific to God. Humans did not rest. When you think about Shabbat in creation,
No indication.
Humans did not rest at creation. In fact, the very first full day of their life, if you take the literal 24-hour day understanding of creation, they didn't have anything to rest from.
Right.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to go through the 8th day thing and the whole, I know there's some people that kind of go into that. I'm not going to go into all that. The point is that the first time we see Shabbat is in the creation account. The very next time we see Shabbat is Exodus 16. Okay, which we already kind of referenced. Okay, so the people rested, they Sabbathed on the seventh day. The next time you see it is Exodus 20, and it comes as the giving of the law. Now, one thing I will say about the giving of the law that most Adventists don't even process. I was an Adventist for over 40 years. You know that I don't think I read Exodus 21, 22, and 23.
Yeah, through to the all the way through to the sealing or the covenant sealed or confirmed. Yeah.
I didn't so Exodus 16 is like a test. And it's almost as is Exodus 16, I'm going to test you to see if you're even going to be willing to follow what I ask you to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Then when they get to the actual, Mount Sinai, all the stuff, and the commandments, I'm not going to go through all the details. You have the regular, by the way, it wasn't really 10 commandments. It was 10 words. There's so much we could talk about with regards to that. But as you get to the end of this, okay, so we get down here, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, like all this stuff. When all the people witnessed the thundering and the trumpets and the mountain smoking, they were afraid and trembled and stood at a distance and said to Moses, "You speak to us and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us lest we die." Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid, for God has come only to test you and to put the fear of him upon you, so that you do not sin."
Right.
This is the giving of it, saying this. So God is testing you. He's telling you how holy he is and how unholy you are. And if you're going to go into a relationship with him, you need to know you are not God. You can't just do things. You can't just show up in the temple that's going to come up in a little bit and just be hanging out. Like you can't put strange fire in the house of God. You can't do like all these things that you can't do, right? Because they're in a covenant relationship with God. And God is not in covenant with anyone else.
And if anyone's going to go and do what he was just saying, which is do the read through, read 16, but also read 19, because it's the setup of entering that relationship.
Yeah.
And when I did this, one of the things that I highlighted as I was noticing it over and over is how many times it talked about the words, like says like, say all of the words that I say, and write down all of the words, and they heard all of the words, and Moses read all of the words. And you'll see that it's this consistent giving of a message. And then the thing that blew me away when I did this for the first time was I didn't realize that they agreed to the whole covenant in 24 and the whole covenant sealing ceremony with the blood and the sacrifices and the elders going up. All of that happened before there's ever a mention of the tablets.
Yes.
The tablets didn't, the establishing, they agreed. The law was read aloud again during that ceremony, and they responded in one voice, "All the Lord has said, we will do." And so the 10 commandments were only carved off in the Israelites' minds at this point, because that's as long as they were able to hold on before they booked it. That was what my read, at least. I'm curious your thoughts on that, but I think God would have kept going if they would have stayed there, and he would have just told them the whole law.
And that, again, it could be, I hadn't thought of it that way. It could be, it's interesting to have these kinds of thoughts around, like, what did happen, what didn't, what kind of concessions did God make, because we see this pattern, like God does make concessions in his relationship. You think about Abraham, right? Abraham a lot. Well, will you kill him if there's this many people? It's like
Yeah.
bartering with God, right?
Hmm.
So, which is a whole nother theme, because there's an entire theme, there's a motif in Scripture that God is not interested in just you and I like doing what he says. God is interested in you and I being participatory,
Yeah. We're
engaging,
not just being, uh, what's
like servants to the Almighty God, like whatever you,
automatons that just
yeah,
like follow a prescribed
yeah,
set of instructions.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. So if you read through the text, so we're still in 20. I mean, there's no reason, again, if you let the text say what it says instead of inserting what there's nothing in the text to say that we would conclude this is all that the law is. Just the 10. Well, how do we know that? Well, they get really afraid, and then what happens? The Lord said to Moses, "Thus you shall say to the Israelites, you have seen for yourselves how I spoke with you from heaven. You shall not make gods." Well, look he's already repeating what was even said. So some scholars, this is just me riffing off of this. Some scholars take that the 10 were like the base stones of the law, and all the others kind of were further explanations of different parts of the law.
Right.
Others say no, it was just they're all extensions, like they're all part. Again, this is a Jewish discussion. The rabbis dialogued on this. Some people called certain laws, they counted them out. Some said there were 613. Others said, well, like there's a whole conversation about this.
Yeah.
But if you read it, you're going to get all kinds of other things. Now, as much as Adventists like this one, they love the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me be very clear on how the law worked. There's nothing in the law that this one's weightier than that one.
Right.
Okay. If you come down here and you, for instance, if his slave gives him a wife and she bears him a son, and the wife of her children shall be her master's, and he shall be gone. But if the slave declares, I love my master, my wife, and there's this explanation of if this happens, this is what you should do. Okay. The Israelites can't go, yeah, it was a good suggestion, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And God wouldn't be like, oh, well, that's okay. There were consequences. It didn't matter if it was what we see as this is a less significant, or this law doesn't make sense to us, so it's not really valuable. The whole law, this was an agreement, just like Tyler had said. If you go all the way down, by the way, the law goes through all of these laws of restitution. And by the way, they're weird.
Yeah.
You want to read these laws, they're weird.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Social and religious laws, justice for all, Sabbath year and Sabbath. Oh, there was a Sabbath year that they had to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Adventists, do you keep that?
Yeah. I've been told that was ceremonial.
Which there's no textual evidence for that.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's a get out of jail free card. The discussions that come up about Isaiah 66 about projecting into the future, that in the new heaven and new earth there will be Sabbath. Well, in the same verse, it also says new moon to new moon.
Yep.
So why are we not keeping that?
Yep. Yep. So
Anyway.
so we see again, this is another rehashing 6 days you have worked, seventh year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not like they're separated. It's like, oh, this is ceremonial, this one's not. Like these are all connected to the whole. The whole, again, this is a theocracy. And what is a theocracy? A theocracy, we're in a democracy in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
It's a specific governmental setup, okay? The governmental setup of the Israelite nation, the Jewish nation, the Hebrews, was a theocracy. Who governed them? God.
Mm-hmm.
God was the ultimate God. They didn't have a democracy like we have. Okay. Yes, there were forms of judges. You'll see that, right? There were people, there were representatives that they had to go to, but ultimately God was the one that made decisions and that judged and put calamity on them, kicked them into exile, like when they, broke the covenant, all that stuff. So it's a theocracy. And this is what I need everyone to understand. If you are in a theocracy, you have to have a law system to run the theocracy. Who gives the law? The God that you're serving gives the law. It's a governmental system. By the way, tithing is all a part of it. I said this once in a, I don't remember if it was an elders meeting or if it was, I think it was in a Sabbath school quarterly class. And we were doing a conversation around tithing. And I said, yeah, best I can understand, tithing was really just a God tax. It was tax.
It was how he operated the cultic system.
And they did not, trust me, people did not like it when I said tax with regards to God and tithing. So as you move through, you've got festivals. You get into the conquest of Canaan was promised. Remember, you're my God. I am your God. You are my people. Here is the laws and the regulations. You abide by this. I'm going to give you the promised land. If you don't, I'm not. I'll protect you. I'll give you, this is the whole relationship. We get into 24, and we're not going to read through it all, but it is a blood covenant. This is not something that you can back out of. This is not hey, can I get a second shot at this? The entire reason why they went into exile was because they violated the covenant. Well, how do you violate the covenant? You break the law. And when you repeatedly break the law, you prove to your master, because this was a covenantal master-servant relationship that's very prevalent in a suzerain relationship in the ancient Near Eastern.
Yes.
So when you do that, the master decides how they want to discipline or whatever,
what's up?
Judge.
What are the stakes of not keeping the covenant? Yeah.
Which is why many of the prophets, they would rip their clothes and pray like, oh Lord, please, please don't leave us. Please don't, we will repent. We will come back to you, like all that stuff, because they knew that they had violated the covenant and it was a blood covenant. Well, what is the penalty for them breaking these laws?
Collectively, the curses of Deuteronomy, end of Deuteronomy.
Yep. Yeah. Another question. And this is something that we as individualistic people tend to not understand. If you were a part of the community and you broke a law, does that mean just you are at fault, or does that mean the whole community is at fault?
I don't know.
The whole community.
I was going to say, I think the whole community. That's why the whole community is responsible to remove that person.
Well, and so either you remove them or you do some sort of rite or ritual to cleanse or rectify or what's called restitution. It's really, the law really was looking for justice and righteousness is really what the law was about. We're going to talk about that with Dr. Johnson Tuesday. So really, the law really wasn't a set of rules of do's and don'ts. The law was designed to make the community think about how do we provide righteousness and justice. And if something's been broken, how do we restore it? If you've done something to someone, how do you restore that relationship? And that's true with the Ten Commandments. It's true with the community. It's true. It's the reason why the temple was there. It's the reason why the whole, atonement, ceremony and cleansing, restoring it back to kind of like getting all the crap from the normal day-to-day, everything that happened. Yeah. It's cleaning. I hate using the word cleanse because then people connect Leviticus and they go to Daniel 8, 13, 14, and they're like off on a rabbit hole. Jump. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, understood.
So when we move through the narrative, and we're going to get to Deuteronomy here. By the way, I haven't even been paying attention to a lot of the questions in the chat because this was such a good, Mary, thank you for asking these questions and setting us up on this. When you think about Exodus 20 and then you get to the re-giving of the law. So think about the history, okay? You have the Egyptian slavery. You come out of Egypt. You get to Mount Sinai. You get the giving of the law. And then between there and now what happens with Deuteronomy? Deuteronomy 5. We get another retelling or a re-giving.
Re-giving, yeah.
Okay.
Deuteronomy, second law.
Yep. We get another set of 10 commandments. And why is this important? If you pay close attention, because people will argue, Adventists will argue especially, the law never changes. That's factually false. It's textually false. Okay? Exodus 20 says, just for clarity, Exodus 20 says in verse, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Here it is. Okay? Keep that. If you got your Bibles with you, like hold that there. And then let's go over to Deuteronomy. Now, this is another set of the 10 commandments. The Lord our God made a covenant with us at Horeb, and not with our ancestors. By the way, there it is. Not with our ancestors did the Lord make this covenant. It's a different covenant.
Different covenant, but is it? Are the 10 Commandments the covenant, or is it just the promise that was made?
Yeah, the way I understand the law as a function is that it sits inside of a covenantal relationship. So the law doesn't really serve as anything if there's no relationship. The same would be true today. If I say I'm an agnostic or an atheist and I don't want anything to do with God. Well, technically, I mean, I'm not going to like the results, but I can go do whatever I want. I'm not in a relationship. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm, again, because I believe God is eternal and like that has long-term implications, but I probably won't have the guilt. I probably won't have all the, because I've severed myself from a relationship with the covenant giver.
Yeah.
Okay. There's actually a place in, we could go to it. There's an argument in one of the Pauline epistles where Paul makes this argument in connection to marriage. And he actually says Romans
7, the husband and wife, the wife is only bound to the husband, and as long as the husband is alive.
Yep.
Right.
Romans 7, and he makes this argument, right? For I am speaking to those who know the law, that the law is binding on a person only during the person's lifetime. He's talking about marriage. And he's going to use this as a way of articulating Pauline theology and understanding of the law post-Christ. Now, I know we're jumping hundreds of years ahead, maybe even thousands, okay? Yeah. Or at least 1,000. Thus, a married woman is bound by the law to her husband. as long as he lives. But if her husband dies, she is discharged from the law concerning the husband. So again, there's a set of laws. That those laws are in a covenantal relationship between a married couple.
Yeah.
You go into this relationship, there's laws. Okay. Accordingly, she will be called an adulteress if she belongs to another man, has sex with another man while the husband is alive. But if her husband dies, well, guess what? The law isn't there anymore. Like because the relationship is severed, because there's a death, you no longer are bound by that. And if she belongs to another man now, well, she's not an adulteress. So the standard is adultery, but when the husband dies, that law dissolves until you get married again. Well, Paul's going to say exactly why he's using this analogy. In the same way, it's an analogy. My brothers and sisters, these are Christ followers. You have died to the law through the body of Christ. When you are united with Christ, just like the husband died, your old self died. Everything like that, all the law, everything that was tied to that old, he's going to actually explain this, dies, because now you're bound to Christ, and he's going to go on and explain what that means, so that you may belong to another, to him who has raised from the dead, in order that we may bear fruit. So we are now bound. It's the same analogy. You have a husband, you were married before, the husband dies. Guess what? It's not adulterous for you to be remarried to the new person. He goes on. For while we are living in the flesh, our sinful passions aroused by the law, by the way, people pay attention. The law arouses sinful passions. People don't make that connection usually. Yeah. We're at work in our members to bear fruit for death. But now we are discharged from the law. Now the question becomes, well, what law? And I know we're jumping from, we jumped from Exodus all the way to Romans, okay? But just understand that the idea of covenantal, like when you're in relationship, there are laws that bind that relationship. So the question becomes, if you are in relationship with Christ, if you are a new creature bound to him through his life, death, and resurrection, then the question becomes, are you bound by the same laws?
That's a great question.
Paul's argument is no, you can't be. That's Paul's argument. Now, I know Adventists like to twist and turn and make all these paths and try to connect it back to we're under the same covenant, okay? But notice what it says.
We serve something different now.
Can't serve the same law.
Yeah.
So that we are enslaved in the newness of spirit and not to the oldness of, what is the written code, friends? Oh, certainly not. I mean, the 10 Commandments weren't written, were they?
Well, that gets back to my observation back at Exodus 24. He wrote down all the things that God said and then read it again. That was the book of the law. Yep. Where did God start speaking? With the first of the 10 Commandments.
That's right.
It's often said. So you point out something relevant. That the book of the law that was put not inside the ark, but outside of the Ark of the Covenant. You've probably heard that explanation as well. That thing that was put outside had the 10 Commandments in it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a common, unfortunately, it's a fallacious argument. I understand the reasoning behind it. I understand that because you're arguing with the end in mind, because one needs the 10 Commandments post-Christ as the standard, then you would divide that out and say, oh, this one was, the 10 Commandments were inside, the other ones were outside. The problem is there isn't any biblical textual evidence that that's what happened. In fact, the opposite is true. If you understand ancient Near Eastern law, again, this covenantal relationship, they were called testimonies.
Mm-hmm.
They were witnesses in the agreement. We would understand them as carbon copies.
Yeah.
When you sign an agreement, who gets it? Do you like, well, I'm going to give you part of the agreement, but I'm going to take this other part and put it over here? No. Every party, every person in the agreement got a copy of it.
Yeah.
In the theocratic structure, God was embodied inside the ark. That's his home. That's where he was located.
Yes.
In the way they understood it. Okay, it's the reason why it went in the most holy place. Like, okay, it's the reason why Psalms talks about the ark is the footstool of God, like all that imagery.
Yeah.
So the copy, God's copy, goes inside, and the other individual, the other group, it can't be inside because they can't open the ark. They can't go inside the ark.
Yeah. If they touch it, they die. So after generations and generations, they would have lost the 10 Commandments.
Yep.
Potentially. If they couldn't, if they never wrote it down anywhere else.
Yep. Yep. And it's part of the reason why we see evidence later on in the story where we do see kings that are like, they forgot the book of the law. It was discovered. Josiah. Yeah. Wow, we forgot, and we need to get back to it. It wasn't just the 10 Commandments. That's not what it was. I wonder if anyone in the chat can tell me the biblical evidence of whether or not the law was written on one tablet, two tablets, front and back, or just front. I'm going to let that sit for a little bit and see if anyone can.
How quick are people on their Google?
Yeah, exactly. Do you know where you would go for something like this? Do you have any idea?
Well, I know Exodus 34. Is it 34? That it's front and back? I believe. Am I right? Is it 34?
Yeah, cut two tablets of stone, and I will write, these words that were on the former tablets.
I think it's...
Okay, but to give it context.
Yeah, context. Yep.
By the way, just as a side note, this is evidence that even when the law was given, it was immediately broken. Literally, right? The tablets were broken. He had to go back and get some more. Yeah. By the way, that's not an apple, by the way. Ha, ha, ha. The tablets. Sorry. That was bad. That was super bad dad joke. Like super bad. Okay. No one shall come up. Where is this here? So he cut it one like the former. He rose early in the morning. The Lord commanded him to take it 2 tablets of stone. So there's 2. The Lord descended.
It's when he comes down. So it's like towards the
stiff-necked people. I'm looking here. I didn't AI search it in my library either. Where's the front and back? Are you finding it? Say
I'm actually looking at my Bible where I have all my highlighting.
And he wrote. Yeah, I'm looking here myself. Okay. Yeah, we'll just. We said this was going to be candid, so. We'll see who can find it. 32, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
I went too far.
There it is. 32, 15, and 16. Okay.
Yeah.
So, here's part of the reason why I bring this up is if you're an Adventist watching, you probably have been taught via Ellen White that it was only on the front, and it was two tablets like this, kind of like folded. It's like she actually kind of makes this comment about them being only on the front and folded, or like, and not really folded, they're stones, but that they, and we can find that if we need to find it. Okay, so she makes this statement. People will ask me, how do you know that she's a false prophet? Well, if she makes a statement that, go ahead, Tyler.
You're talking about the halo around the fourth one, the vision of her Sabbath vision with the two. She sees the
Yep.
Ten Commandments in the Ark of the Covenant, and with 4 on one side and 6 on the other, and they were all glorious, but there was a extra bright halo around the fourth.
Yeah, it's her broadside visions. I believe I'm Googling, or I'm looking at it right now. But yeah, I think it's her broadside visions.
Yeah, that was one of the early indications to me that her visions were being made up or were not from God, because that's a really easy factual evidence that what she was either shown or made up wasn't the real thing. Because you can't see them all at one time sitting in the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, so here's the, again, just so that the audience is aware that we're not just making this stuff up, okay? By the way, the broadside visions, there was 3 of them, little history on them. These are the very early broadside visions. This is actually 1847. Very early in her prophetic career, her false prophetic career. You'll see on the left-hand side, I've notated others. You're going to see there's one on April 6, 1846. There's one on April 7, almost a year later to the date. She has another one in 1849. But the really important thing to understand with this, just as a side note for this vision, okay? The very first vision that she has, which I believe is the 1846 one. We can go look at it. While praying at the family altar, the Holy Ghost fell on me, and da-da-da-da-da. So she was in vision, okay? Mm-hmm. They had bright light set beside. This is the remnant. Just side note, man, I hate to get off on a side trail on Ellen White, but you almost have to, because the Sabbath is the main reason why Adventists have a hard time seeing what the biblical text actually says about the Sabbath is because it conflicts with what Ellen White says.
Yeah.
So this is the midnight cry, which is the remember 1844. The disappointment, the whole little remnant that were falling apart were the people that were...
The little flock.
Yep, and the people that left because William Miller was wrong, that was like, you're gone, you're falling off the path. That was the whole vision. The vision was not really about us falling off the path. The vision was about the small little group of people that, in their great disappointment, they weren't staying true, because she apparently said that God put his hand over that little date.
The error on the
the
chart.
error on the William Miller chart. God put his hand. By the way, God doesn't have a hand, but God put his hand over that little date to test them, to intentionally deceive them and see if they would still follow him. Major issues. That is like complete false prophet. You don't have to go any further than that. Everything she wrote's junk. It could be nice. There can be some flowery stuff. There might be some stuff that's correct. She's a false prophet from day one.
So much of that good stuff she stole from other people.
Yep. Yep. So when you get into this, okay, and you read this vision, she talks about they fell away right here. They fell away until we heard the voice. She claims that these are the 144 because in her mind, initially, the little remnant was going to be the 144 in her mind. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a small group and God was going to come and, that was it. It was her group. It was the Advent movement. So she goes on. By this time, look at this. This is actually another indicator. By this time, the 144 were all sealed.
Mm-hmm.
Problem. We're still here, and there's a lot more than 144,000. Problem. On their foreheads was written God, New Jerusalem, glorious star, all this stuff. So when you go through this whole thing, okay, it explains the Son of Man, that she saw the Son of Man. By the way, no one can see God. So again, there's problems with all of this. She's going to eventually get into here. Jesus raised his mighty, glorious arm. Again, God doesn't have an arm. Laid hold of the gate, swung it back, golden hinge, all this stuff, okay, washed. At first, I thought I saw two trees. She goes on and on and on and explains all this stuff, okay? I want you to pay attention, okay, to this. Mm-hmm. This is the very first vision she had. Very first one on this, the broadside vision.
Yeah.
In the ark beneath where the angel's wings spread was the golden pot of manna, yellowish cast, and I saw a rod, which Jesus said was Aaron's. I saw a bud blossom. Like, we can get all this stuff from biblical texts, right? We know that Aaron's rod is in there, all this stuff, okay?
Yeah.
And I saw two long golden rods on which hung silver wires. We don't know anything about this. And golden rods with silver wires on it. And on the wires, most glorious grapes. One cluster was more than the man could carry. I remember thinking that. Was biblical. And I saw Jesus step up and take off the manna, almond, grapes, and pomegranates and bear them down to the city and place them on the supper table, stepping up to see how much was taken away. And there was just as much left. Now, the vision ends up coming to a conclusion, okay? So understand, here's my point in this, and I'm going to get to the one that we were looking at. Very first vision she has. She sees inside the ark. You just read what she saw. Does she ever mention the Ten Commandments?
That's weird.
It's not there. It's not there. She does not mention it in this vision. You want to know what happens a year later? Same exact vision. We're going to look at it in just a second. But in between this vision and the one in a year, she ends up running into the Daystar article and hears about the Sabbath.
Right.
She actually is introduced to the concept of the Sabbath in between.
And what is the argument of those Sabbatarian groups but that the Ten Commandments are under attack?
Well, and understand, again, if you take the stance that this woman is a prophet of God, she's looking, and if you take the stance that what is about to be read from the next vision is true, and the fact that the Sabbath is moral, why would the first vision have this, oh, it's not there. It's not important. Mm-hmm. It's not whatever. My dog is barking now. Can you hear that?
It's
a little bit
coming through.
She's yapping at me because she's trying to get my attention. So here's what I want to show you. Okay, in between. So we're on a side. This is why this is so important for Adventists. Okay, now this is not necessarily true for other Sabbatarian groups, but for Adventists, a year later, April 7, it's actually 366 days later. 1847, she has the same exact vision. If you read through the same vision, she goes through. Here I saw the altar, showbread, holiest of holies, above the ark. Same description, almost to the T. Their faces, all the stuff above the ark. There were angels stood exceeding. Jesus stood by the ark, and here we get the description. And as the saints' prayer came up to Jesus, the incense in the center would smoke, and he offered up prayers. In the ark was what? We get the same thing, pot of gold, or pot of manna. It wasn't leprechaun. A golden pot of manna, Aaron's rod that budded, the table, and the tables of stone. Oh, were what?
Folded. That's
Folded
strange.
together like a book. She's a nut job. And what does she go on to say? Jesus opened them, and now she tells you, if she's true, she's telling you what's true in this statement. I saw the 10 Commandments written on them with the finger. This is why Adventists say the finger of God. Mm-hmm. They cannot go against it. This is the reason why they argue it. On one tablet was 4, and on the other was 6. Well, isn't that nice and convenient? Mm-hmm. The 4 of the first table shone brighter than the other 6.
That's strange.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. That's not the way the law worked. Like, come on. I mean, like, if you know anything about ancient Near Eastern law, there isn't, especially the Israelite law, one law isn't better than others. First 4 aren't better than others. They don't shine. They're not like higher priority than the others. Mm-hmm. Like, none of that's true. Okay. The 4 and the first were brighter, but the 4th shone above them all, for the Sabbath was set apart. And she goes on this thing. And she goes on and notice what she adds. Remember, a year before, she didn't see this. In between this period of time, she read an article. She was told about the Pope. She was told about all the stuff. And she has the same vision and inserts it all in.
Yeah.
Because what does she do? A halo of glory was around it. I saw that the Sabbath was not nailed. She's making all these. I saw that it wasn't nailed. If it was, the other 9, same argument that Adventists make to this day. They're literally making Ellen White's arguments from her broadside vision. Mm-hmm. We are not at liberty to go forth and break them all, as well as break the 4th. I saw this, and then what does she goes on about the Pope? And she rails and rails and rails. All this is extra about the Sabbath. So if those that are watching, my encouragement to you is, please use the brain that God gave you to think about what's going on. You have this woman in 1844 that bought into a false date-setting movement. She then, when it's disappointed, when everyone's disappointed, no worries, Tyler, if you got to go.
I can be back in a little bit. I can message you, but I gotta get my littles from the bus stop.
I know you do.
Yeah.
You can bounce out whenever you need to. It's all good.
Okay.
So you have this, this group of people that buy into her agenda, and ironically, she's introduced after she claims that the date was wrong, and God put His hand over the date, and it was a test, and all this stuff. Now she has this vision, and this is literally 2 years later, 1846. She has the first vision that gets a repeat vision of things that weren't in the first one. But if it's so important, why wasn't it in the first one? So, and again, why is this so important? Well, this plays back to the very beginning when I said, how do you see the law? Are you viewing the law through Ellen White's understanding? Or are you viewing it through the biblical understanding and the history of the early church, like the apostles, and like the apostles that got taught by the apostles, like the first and second generation apostles? Okay. Ellen White was heavily influenced. Yes, Kevin James, heavily influenced by the Daystar article. Let's see. We have a question here. And how can no one see Mary as the new Ark of the Covenant? I'm not sure what you mean by that. You'll have to paraphrase that. So back to the law, okay, and we're gonna get back into the Sabbath, the law, all this stuff. Okay, I want to go into, because we're running at an hour and 40 minutes here. We're gonna do, several of these. Okay, we're gonna talk more about this. But when you fast forward in the narrative, right, you get the giving of the law, Exodus, you get the re-giving in Deuteronomy. Now, notice that in Deuteronomy, let me get back to the Deuteronomic text. I wonder if this, yeah, there we go. So when you get the new set of commandments given, or the retelling of them, okay, notice what it says. It says, but it's not identical. It says, observe. Let me do this. Let me just put these side by side so you all can see this. Okay. We get Exodus 20 on the right. Here we go. Starting at verse 8. On the left, we have the Deuteronomic giving. Observe the Sabbath day, keep it holy. This is remember. So some might say, well, that's not a big difference. There is a difference between remembering it versus observing it. It's not identical. Now, it's not massively different, but keep reading the text. This is all the same, right? So observe, keep it holy as the Lord has commanded you. Okay, this is different. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work. All this is pretty identical until what happens down here. So that there is a reason for it. So you observe it. In the Exodus version, it doesn't tell you why. In Deuteronomy, it tells you, do this for a purpose, so that your male and female slave may rest. The function of it was to give your slaves a time off. So when someone makes the argument that it was the same, it's always been, the law's always been the same. It's not. The purpose of it, the reason for it, in fact, the whole reason that it remained relevant was that it had to change. It had to. And we're going to see this actually when we get into, as we go through, I'm going to get into the New Testament, because there's a lot, in the Old Testament, you have, the giving of the law. And then for most of the rest of the Old Testament, for most of it, the whole purpose of what's going on is the relationship of the covenant people breaking the covenant, going into exile, coming back into covenant relationship, breaking it, going out into exile. I mean, it's a cyclic. It's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until we get what I don't really like using the term like the time of silence, because that's not really what's going on in between the old and the new. But until there's this hope that the one that will restore us will come, the Messiah. And there were lots of other Messiahs, by the way. The Messiah just is an anointed one. David, they thought maybe David. They thought maybe Moses. They thought David. There's several of them. Okay. Yes. In fact, I really appreciate that statement. I don't think they pay attention enough to the fact that the fourth commandment does endorse slavery. Now, it's not the same slavery that that we experienced in the Americas and the African American slavery. That's not the same thing, but there is an endorsement in the law that allows for and again, it's not the same kind. I'm not, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that it's the identical kind of slavery. It's not actually, because there are parts of the law that requires someone who has a servant to restore what's been taken away, to give. There was this restitution and justice. We're going to talk about this next week with Dr. Drew Johnson. Okay. So my point being that it's not identical. It's not the same. It functioned for different reasons. Okay. When you get into the New Testament, because again, Jesus comes on the scene, you get the Gospels, the narrative of what happened with Christ, his life, death, and resurrection. Something really extraordinary happens in the New Testament within the lifetime of the apostles. Now, again, what is Sabbath? Sabbath is a ceasing. Sabbath in the Old Testament was a ceasing from work. There's actually very few connections to Sabbath being worship. There's actually very little. There is some reference to convocation or gathering. There is a reference to that. But there really isn't this Adventist gymnastic that happens where it's like, oh, Sabbath is the day you worship. No, that's not really the connection in Jewish thought. In fact, early in Jewish thought, you couldn't even leave your house. Like you couldn't leave, you could not walk. You were told by the law to remain in your home, to cease, to not do anything. And it's ironic to me, the Jewish Sabbath keepers, meaning like the Adventists like to consider themselves, that they keep the Jewish Sabbath. They don't. They've never kept a Jewish Sabbath in the history of Adventism. They like to think, that they're keeping the Sabbath, but every time they leave their house and go to church and start a vehicle, which means they light a fire, like all those things are breaking the Jewish Sabbath. You can't travel. You can't go out of your house. You can't turn your gas stove on. If you're in the woods, you can't light a fire. You can't heat your home. You can't, there's all these things you can't do. So again, understand when you get to the New Testament, you have Jesus is a Jew. He is born inside of that Jewish context. Okay. So when we see him doing things on the Sabbath or regulating what can be done on the Sabbath because he's the Lord of the Sabbath, he also must keep the Sabbath. He must keep the law because he's under that covenant relationship. Okay. When we get to life, death, resurrection of Christ, we're going to move through the Gospels, and then I'm going to go to Acts. Now, again, I'm going to be very clear here, and I'm going to go through a lot of the historical evidence of like how the church engaged and interacted. I'm not going to be able to do it tonight with the time. But when we get to like Acts 20, again, Acts, remember, is like the historical kind of, it sets up literally how the early church, the diaspora, right? The breaking out of the gospel. It's the historical book of kind of what happened in the early church history. The first apostles. So when we get to Acts 20, verse 7, this is first century. Okay, first century, roughly around AD 59-ish. This is before the Jerusalem was ransacked and destroyed and all that stuff, okay, in AD 70. What do we see? We see in verse 7, we have very clearly on the first day of the week when we met to break bread, Paul was holding a discussion. Now, this is not a reference to, let me be very clear. There's no, the first day of the week in Troas, which is where this is located, is Sunday. It's not Saturday, okay? It's Sunday. Now, I'm not claiming that Saturday was changed to Sunday. No one, I'm not ever going to make that claim. Okay, I don't think that's a logical claim. I don't think it's a biblical claim. Some might push back on that, and that's fine. Okay, but there isn't really precedence in Scripture that when Paul here in verse 7, when this is going on, that he somehow has changed as a Jew, that he now thinks of Sunday as the Jewish Sabbath. That's not what's going on. Okay. But they are gathering, they are meeting, and you will, if you follow the narrative of why and when and how it all worked out through the first about 400 years from around, the 30s and 40s into the early 300s especially, you're going to find a fairly consistent progression to when you get to the 330s, 40s, 50s AD, practically no Christians were keeping the Jewish Sabbath. None. Most of them were Gentile Christians anyways. They would not have a precedence they wouldn't be Judaizers, okay? If you go to First Corinthians 16, 1-4, now concerning the collection for the saints. Now again, doesn't mean that they were using this as Sabbath. I'm tired of Adventists making the claim, oh, you think that it was changed. No, I'm not making the argument. I wish we would just stop this argument. No one's making the claim, at least I'm not making the claim, that Paul in 1 Corinthians is arguing that, the Jewish Sabbath is Sunday now. But notice that they did get together and they made a collection. They were gathering. Okay, you should follow the directions I gave to the churches in Galatia. So very clearly, Paul gave instructions on how and what to do when they gathered. On the first day of every week, each of you is to put aside and save whatever extra you earn so that collections can be made. So clearly, and again, it goes on and why, there was some sort of a gathering. They were doing it on the first day of the week. That's Sunday. No one's going to argue that. They were not, okay? This is actually the oldest reference to regular Christian gathering, what I would call worship. They're not Judaizing. They're not saying Saturday is Sunday. They're gathering on a day for the purpose of doing something as a group, that we call that worship. And part of worship was collecting. Now, Adventists like to make the argument, oh no, they were just, what were they doing? They just hanging out and giving each other money and collecting money. That's it. Come by and drop off your money on this day. That's not, again, if you look at the history, that's not what happened. Okay. As you continue to move, this is AD 55. Okay. If you go to Revelation 1:10, now I know Adventists are going to freak out at me and balk at me for this. Okay. I already got people, I'll leave their names off, really kind of being irritated about the Lord's Day arguments. Okay. But my suggestion for you all is that you would trace the actual historical movement of how the early church gathered. Okay. And if one's going to make the argument that Sabbath is holy and you can't gather any other day, you can't worship any other day, if you're not keeping the Sabbath, you're immoral, then practically all of Christianity, by the time you get to about early 300s, are all lost. They're all immoral. All of them. Okay. So, by the time you get to John, which whether it's again, you either think this is pre-AD 70 or post. It kind of depends, honestly. At any rate, he was in a vision on what's called the Lord's Day. Most scholars will agree this is probably Sunday. Okay. There is reason for that academically. I'm not saying that Sabbath is now Sunday. That's not what I'm making an argument for. Okay. So there's a very specific day of the week that's being recognized here that has already kind of earned what's called a theological title, and it's the Lord's Day. Okay. And there's lots of early church history behind that. It's not accidental. It's an intentional shift. And there's talk about this in the early church fathers. Okay. That I won't get to tonight, because we're gonna take one additional person here, and then we're gonna close it down, and we'll do a part 2 and maybe 3. We're gonna pick up with the early church fathers next time, because I'm just telling you, like Ignatius talks about this, Justin Martyr. So just so you know, and you can do your homework, Ignatius is in 120s, the early 120s. Okay, Justin Martyr is 170 AD. You have Origen, mid 3rd century. You have Athanasius in 345 AD. There's a progression of early church fathers that you either take the stance that you believe that all of these early church fathers are apostatizing and they're like evil. Okay, they're breaking the law. You either take that stance, or you understand that there was a different theological construct in these early, again, first and second apostles. You even have like Polycarp, who is the apostle. Many believe the apostle to Paul. So you get lots of evidence. There's not just one or two. This is a very consistent theme of progression towards honoring, gathering together, and honoring the day of Christ's resurrection. Okay. All right. Now here's what we're going to do, because I'm running out of time. We've got one person in the stage. I'm going to pull you in. I think we got Christopher. I don't know if you can have your video on or not. I don't see your video on or right now. If you're in a space where you can, that would be great. We're going to bring Tyler out. And Christopher, you are on stage right now. If you can unmute, and if you want to ask kind of a question, if you have one.
Your mic is sounding really well on my side. I don't think it's on YouTube, but sounding really crackly.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Do you have a question?
I'm an Adventist.
Uh-huh.
I think you're misunderstanding some of the scriptures in terms of the Sabbath, especially when you're talking about the purpose of it. Like,
Okay.
the scripture you were reading, the purpose of the Sabbath, as they say, it was about honoring the day of the Lord, right? Because when it says the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord, says the 6th day shalt thou work, but the 7th is the Sabbath of the Lord, and thou shalt do no work in it. So it is identifying why you're not doing anything on that day. So it's not based on slavery, it's based on this is the Sabbath of the Lord your God, and in it you shall do no work. So the reason for keeping the Sabbath, it's because it is the day of the Lord, and we are to honor his day, basically.
Okay. I don't disagree with that, but I have a question for you. How do you know? Okay, again, if this is really important, and if violating this by doing some sort of work or whatever it is, okay, whatever that is, if that in turn breaks the law, okay, how do you know what constitutes work or not work based on what the law says?
Well, based on the law, it talks about doing our own thing, basically. If you would keep your foot from doing your own pleasure on my holy day, and call my Sabbath a delight, I will bless you. So the work he's talking about is work focused on oneself. That is why, if you realize it, say, 6 days shall thou do all your labor, meaning all that you have to do, whether it be work, whether it be whatever it is, you do for you within 6 days. But the 7 days is the Sabbath of the Lord, and he is now focusing that to do things pleasing or concerning him. This is why when Christ said, "Isn't it good to do good on the Sabbath?" Meaning, whatever is according to the will of God, it is okay. It is okay to do on the Sabbath.
Okay, but you understand what I'm asking, okay? So my follow-up question would be, do you do any work on Saturday?
No, when
Based on the Exodus law, and what it determines as work, do you violate work on Saturday?
no, I don't, because I think what is confused in that Exodus law is their punishment for persistently going out and doing things, and they will punish and say, "Here, what? Don't even come out of your house again." Because initially they were allowed to come out their house and do things, but when people continuously went collecting firewood and doing other different things, it's like he said, when would you,
So
keep
the standard changed. So they
no
eventually were inside, and then like they could the standard for how like what work was, it changed.
no, the standard wasn't changed. It was like, all right, or they're not listening. To get Ollie to do this here, what? On this day, just don't come out your house. It's like, when it's somebody, it's
So it's
like,
okay for you to come out of your house, but it wasn't okay for them.
as I said, that is when they aggravated him and he decided to get them to do this. I need to restrict them.
So
You
he
you
changed.
realize laws come like restriction. Hey, don't do this or else, right? This is what.
So you're saying God changed. At first he allowed it, and now he's saying you can't.
No, he didn't change. He
But
put
you just said he changed, Christopher. You just said
no.
like he allowed it, then he got aggravated, then he like made this adjustment to it. Well, now you can't leave. So the question is okay, if they can't leave now, what in the law says that you can leave? What in the law what a part of the law constitutes that you can light a fire? Where in the law says that if you're going to keep the Sabbath based on the law in the Old Testament, where does it say that you, Christopher, now can light a fire on from Friday to Saturday?
As I was saying, you see, you're putting it down to these menial labor kind of things when it's
No,
more than
it's
that.
literally in the text, Christopher.
But the text, what you identify in the text, is when he got angry for them for not doing what he asked them to do, and to get them to not do what he doesn't want them to do. He says, "Stay inside." It's almost like grounding a child. Then it's like the grounding is not the purpose, but if it helps you get to where I want you, to the place I want you to be, I will use that as a way to get you to that point. So the staying inside is not the focus. It's about them living or doing what is pleasing to him on that day. Because as I said,
It's subjective now. So
no,
now
it's not.
you and I get to determine on Sabbath whether or not I
No,
can
it's not.
drive to church or whether or not I can do this or do that. As long as I think that it's not the type of work, then it's okay.
It's not subjective. I don't know if you realize, even in the Jewish time, they would journey to the temple on the Sabbath day, right? They
Yeah.
weren't staying inside. They were going to the
Can,
temple. And
can you see on my screen right now?
I'm on my phone, so it'll be really kind of small as it's on my
Okay.
phone.
I'll read it. This is Exodus 35. This is after the giving of the law. This is the Sabbath regulations. Okay. This is not like he's decided that he's been angered, and so now he's gonna up the ante. The law was given in 10 all the way through 24. There was the blood covenant, all that stuff. Okay, he comes down from, okay, but Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the leaders in the congregation returned to him, and Moses spoke to them after all the Israelites came near, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken. This is right after the giving. When Moses had finished speaking, he put a veil on his face. But whenever Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he would take the veil off. The very next chapter, Moses assembled all the congregation of the Israelites and said to them, "These are the things that the Lord has commanded you to do. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day you shall have a holy Sabbath of solemn rest to the Lord. Whosoever does any work on it shall be put to death. You shall kindle no fire in all your dwellings on the Sabbath day." Is this still the same, or is it no longer the case? Like if you abide by the 10 commandments and you claim this is literally right after the commandments have been given, and you're claiming that it doesn't matter anymore. Like this, it's okay to light a fire. It's okay to, like, that doesn't matter somehow anymore. That's a inconsistent argument with how the law functioned. And it's inconsistent. You can even see Jews today actually take this seriously. They will tape masking tape over their light switches in their refrigerators to not let the light bulbs come on. They will not turn on any electricity. They won't light their stove, nothing, because God told them not to do this. And your argument is, well, I mean, that was kind of because he was trying to get them to do something, but it's you can do it now. That's inconsistent with the law. So if you're going to abide by it, like this has been always my argument, is if you're really going to abide by the Mosaic law, you need to take it all seriously. Especially, I mean, this isn't, even if you disregard the quote unquote ceremonial laws, which I don't believe that you can separate them, but let's just say that you take the 10 commandments. This is telling you as a 10 commandment keeper, as a Mosaic 10 Decalogue keeper, that you have to do this or else you will be put to death. So it's not consistent, in my opinion. At least what the text is saying.
But based on everything you're saying there, you're talking about how the Jews are serious about it to the point that they tape different things over whatever, right? But the thing is, they leave their house, right? Wasn't that part of the thing? Isn't that the main thing he said at that point? Don't even leave your house, right? But they leave their house to go to temple, correct?
There's reasons why Jews today make, again, this is a whole different argument. Modern Jews have tried to continue to keep the laws without a temple. Like they recognize this is a whole rabbinic tradition. Like through the years when the temple was, destroyed, they don't have a temple anymore. They can't make sacrifices like they used to be able to do, but they continue to try to honor the covenant arrangement by, again, this is why the rabbis say what they say and tell people. It's why you have to go. I have a very close Orthodox Jewish friend, and he has to go to his rabbi and ask him, like, is this okay? Can I do this? Because the rabbis were the ones that were telling. It's what the Pharisees, they told you how to honor the law. And I really hope you were on next week on Tuesday when we have Dr. Drew Johnson on. He's going to actually go through a lot of this because I think that we've done a disservice to understanding how law functioned in the life of a Jew. And we've become so divorced or disconnected from the Jewish culture that nowadays we make statements like, well, you got to keep the Sabbath, but yet the way you're keeping the Sabbath isn't even a Jewish. It's no. There's not a single Adventist that has kept the Sabbath the way the law requires. So I would encourage you to be. I really do appreciate you jumping on. I'm at the 2 hour and 10 minute mark here. I would encourage you. My encouragement to you would, if you haven't yet, go to the YouTube channel and go through my Sabbath series and the Covenant Theology series. Maybe that will help you kind of understand my framework. I haven't even gotten to the history of the Sabbath in the early Christian church. I haven't really gotten to my personal understanding of what I think the text is really saying about Sabbath, because Sabbath, when you get to Hebrews, Jesus is more than the Sabbath. Jesus, there is a function for what the Sabbath pointed to, and the Sabbath was a shadow.
I don't think the Sabbath was a shadow.
Well, you can disagree with Hebrews. You can take that up with the author of Hebrews. That's fine with me if you want to take that up.
Because
But the theological argument of the author is that everything is less than Christ, and that Christ is the substance and essence of what everything pointed to.
right.
And the whole reality of how you and I are able to rest today is only by being in the body of Christ, by being connected to, by being a believer and being connected to Christ is the only way that you and I can enter rest from our work.
Right.
That's the whole theological argument of the author of Hebrews.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, the 7th-day Sabbath is not a shadow. The 7th-day Sabbath is hinged upon creation. This is why
It's 100% a shadow. 100%.
a shadow of what? If it's hinged on the creation before sin, because the things that are shadows.
It's not hinged on creation. There is rest found in the creation narrative, but Sabbath is not hinged on creation. Sabbath was a representation of what real rest is, because our Creator rested. But it's not a hinge. It's not like you can't disconnect it from. That's not it. They were supposed to remember that they were the created. They were supposed to remember creation when they rested. You rest from your work.
Right.
But again, all of that is symbols and connections. It's typology to Christ. And the frustrating part, oftentimes in my conversations with Adventists, is that they miss the real function of Christ, because you're still even Paul argues on this. If you want to abide by the Mosaic law, then you're going to have a veil. You're never going to be able to see the gospel of Jesus Christ, because you're so connected to the Mosaic law that was supposed to be the shadow of the substance who's here.
I could agree that the Mosaic law is a shadow, but the 10 Commandments is not part of the Mosaic.
The Mosaic law is the 10 Commandments are a part of the Mosaic law.
Commandments. Moses did not give the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
Moses wrote the other laws.
No,
God gave
that's
them
an inaccurate statement. That is 100% wrong. I know you've been told that.
No,
that
it's not what the Bible says.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't say that.
In it's Deuteronomy chapter 5.
Deuteronomy chapter 5 that we looked at earlier.
Yeah, I think it's at the end of it. I can't remember exactly.
So you think that God gave them the 10 words, but all the others was not given by God?
Well, I think Deuteronomy, the first set of verses in chapter 6 identifies the others.
Yeah, Moses is the mediator of the covenant, but the covenant had all of those laws. The covenant just didn't have just the Decalogue. And again, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of ancient Near Eastern, like covenant understanding.
No, but to me, when you read Deuteronomy, I believe it's supposed to be chapter 5, right?
Chapter 5 is the second giving of the law. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And
It says in 22, these words God spoke from the mountain. He wrote them on. Verse 22.
who spoke and wrote them from the mountain?
God did, but go back to Exodus 20. He spoke all of the other ones. Remember, this is like the second time. So you can't make the argument, like you're making a logical fallacy argument that because it says in Deuteronomy 5:22 that it says he wrote them on 2 tablets, so he didn't write any of the others. He didn't do anything of the others. Well, that contradicts Exodus 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, which says that he gave all those. And this is just a retelling of the first one. I tell you what,
Yeah.
I really appreciate the conversation. This is actually good. I'm glad you came on.
22.
Yeah, 22 is where I looked at. Yeah.
Right. It
Yeah.
says, these words the Lord spake unto you, unto all your assembly in the mount, out of the midst of the fire, out of the clouds, and of the thickness of the thick darkness, with
Yeah.
a great voice, and he
Mhm.
added no more, and wrote them on 2 tables of stone. So you see the part where he say he added no more?
So if I understand your argument right, what your argument is that you think that number one, God wrote only the 10 words, the Decalogue. He didn't write any of the others, and that all the other is just Moses.
Well, if you look at chapter 6 of
Is
Deuteronomy,
that correct? Is that the argument that you're making?
right, correct. This is based on chapter 6 of Deuteronomy.
Okay, so what about Exodus 20 though? Which is again is precursor to Deuteronomy. Okay, so if you go to Exodus and you get the giving down here, and here you've got God telling them all this other stuff. It's not Moses. It's God is telling them, thus you shall say to them.
Right.
Moses
So
was the mediator.
Right.
He didn't make the laws.
Right. Moses mediated that. But if you really look at it, the 10 Commandments wasn't mediated by Moses. Moses came down at the bottom of the mountain and received it with
They
the
were all
people.
mediated. He gave them all of them.
No, God spoke directly the 10. Isn't that correct? Then he spoke and wrote the 10 on 2 tables of stone himself.
You're in Deuteronomy. Go back to chapter 20 in Exodus. Go back to chapter 20 in Exodus. Okay.
So you're saying Exodus is different from Deuteronomy?
It 100% is. 100%. In fact, we know that because Deuteronomy 5 in the reference of the Sabbath commandment is actually different than Exodus 20.
Exodus 20 says, and God spake all these words saying, I am the Lord thy God. So this here has God directly speaking to them. Exodus 20, right?
Yes, but you're missing my point, Christopher. You're hung up on, you're using, it would be like me using something that Paul said as an argument to prove what Zechariah meant, even though Zechariah came before Paul. So you're using, in the narrative of the text, you're using an older giving of the law. This was later in the historical movement of the Israelite community. Deuteronomy 5 is after the giving of the first law at Mount Sinai. It's not the same thing. So you're using a later giving as a way of proving that the first one, which disagrees with you, And it's logically doesn't make sense. If you go to Exodus 19, which is the entire, first interaction when the Lord descended upon Mount Sinai, the Lord summoned him up to the top. So the Lord said to Moses, "Go down and warn the people not to break through to see the Lord, otherwise many of them would perish, even the priests." Moses said to the people are not permitted to come up the mountain. It was all these set up. And then we get into, and Moses went down to the people and told them. This is what he told them. I am the Lord your God. This is the giving of the commandments. Okay, so he comes down off the mountain and he tells them the start of Exodus 20, verse 2, the 10 commandments. But don't stop there, because at the end of the giving of the Decalogue, or the 10 words, okay, this is verse 18. When all the people witnessed the thunder and said to Moses, "You speak to us, but we're afraid." Moses said to the people, "Don't be afraid." And then what does it say? The Lord said to Moses. It's a continuation. "Thus you shall say to the Israelites, you have been here," and he gives more laws concerning the altar, and he gives more laws concerning slaves, and he gives more laws concerning, this is not Moses giving laws. This is God telling Moses what to tell them. Moses is only the mediator. He did not make up or create or come up with laws on his own.
Right.
All the laws are given by God, and they are all inside the covenant arrangement that gets a blood oath in chapter Exodus 24. All the laws given in those 4 chapters, all of them. And then in chapter 24, it says, "Then he said to Moses, come up to the Lord, bring Aaron, Nadab, all these people." Moses alone came near, and then they went into a blood oath. So the previous 4 chapters are all of the laws that are a part of the covenant. It's not just the 10. You cannot, this is like a 101 error. You cannot separate the 10 from the rest of them and claim that God gave the 10, but Moses did all the others.
Moses mediated all the others. God spoke directly for himself. So are you saying that Moses is the one who wrote the commandments on the table of stone?
I'm saying God wrote all of them. All.
No. Moses
didn't write any of them.
Moses wrote the law on paper. Well, I say in paper.
No, he didn't. There was no paper back then.
No. Parchment, however it is that
there was no parchment. There was absolutely none of that. It was literally no ability to write at this time period. It was like on rock. That's the reason. It's part of the reason why it was on rock. It was chiseled in. They did not have utensils to write things in ink and all that stuff. It was literally given by God to Moses, all of it. Not just the 10.
But as far as the Bible is concerned, all we see is God giving him the 10, right?
No.
Where he tell him, "Come up, let me rewrite the thing I gave you before," correct? So he wrote it for him the first time.
So in Deuteronomy, this is what most academics that specialize in ancient Near Eastern law will tell you, is that more than likely the re-giving in Deuteronomy is only given the 10 because many understand those as a summarization of all the others. But that doesn't mean that all the others were done away with. That doesn't mean that Moses did those and God didn't do, none of that. That you won't find any scholar out there that understands ancient Near Eastern law that will argue that Moses was the one that wrote the others. They were all from God.
But you can't call it a summary because they, as you say, all were given the first time, right? So then if he only gave him the 10, which was part of what they were given the first time, that 10 is not a summary of all, because that 10 was part of what you are saying they were given. So it's not a summary.
Yeah, I'm just telling what some will say. I'll tell you my personal opinion. My personal opinion is you don't have to have in Deuteronomy all of the laws rehashed.
But they were, right? Well, the 10 were. The 10
Yeah,
were
but
rehashed.
you don't have to have, again, this is it would be like me saying, today, if I were to tell you, if I were to tell you the first time I went and got my driver's license and I told you, yeah, I went and I studied and I looked at, it was like a, massive packet. And I looked at this law and this law and this law and look at all these laws. Okay. And then I were to tell you, hey, Christopher, guess what? My driver's license lapsed and I had to go back and take the test. You know that the test is it's the same thing. You don't have to like rehash it out in like exactitude in order for it to all be like, and again, there's no Jew that would understand that only the 10 was what they were following. We see that later on in the historical narrative of the text. There were ceremonial laws that are a part of the original giving that they either broke or had to interact with or deal with or whatever it might be. So you don't have to have in the Deuteronomy giving, you don't have to have a rehashing of every single new law. The narrative is just telling them that they're reenacting it. And again, there's a specific reason for the Sabbath given that's different than the one in Exodus.
Well, it doesn't really show as different because all are rehashed as they were in Exodus. And
No, they're not.
one Exodus,
They're not all the same.
no, I'm
They're
not saying
not,
they're all the
Christopher.
same. I'm not saying that they're all the same. I'm saying they were all rehashed, right? As they were in Exodus, right? And they were all written on stone as they were in Exodus. So in Exodus and in Deuteronomy, they were written on stone twice. He broke the first 2 tables of stone and they were written for him. So it's not that he was given 613. He was given the 10 laws that God spoke.
No, he was given all of them. All 613 were part of the covenant. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying.
No.
In Deuteronomy, the Israelites did not just have post Deuteronomy. The Israelites did not just have 10 laws.
I know they didn't just have 10 laws.
They had all 613 that were given in Exodus 20.
And they would have had that. But what I'm saying, the 10 is what God directly spoke to them and what he specifically wrote on 2 tables of stone for them based on Exodus.
No, that's not the case.
But isn't that what Exodus says?
No.
What does
Exodus doesn't say anything about the writing of, if you go back to Exodus 20, get it back on the screen here. If you go back to Exodus 20, it just says God spoke these words. And then come down here and he finished speaking. It does not say anything about like a tablet. He just spoke the words. And then coming down here, he spoke more words and he spoke more words and he spoke more words. There's no, in Exodus 20 to 24, there is no God only wrote the 10. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The text does not say that. That is a,
but it says he spoke 10, right?
He spoke all of them.
Where do you get the rest of them that he spoke in Exodus 20? Because according to Exodus 20, you only spoke the 10, right?
Are you looking at my screen?
Remember, I tell you it's small, so I won't be able to read it.
Okay, well, Exodus 20, verse 22 says, the Lord said to Moses, thus, and it's a quote, thus you shall say to the Israelites, you have seen yourselves how I spoke with you from heaven. You shall not make gods of silver alongside. You need to make of me an altar. And then it goes into laws for slaves. He continues to say, these are the ordinances that you shall set before them. He literally is saying, this is God speaking. There is no difference in the text. You have been told that the 10 are different. There's no difference in the text. It starts out in 20 verse 1 and says, then God spoke all these words, and it gives, I am the Lord your God. It gives all of them. In verse 18, at the end of the 10 words, that's what they're called. In verse 18, it says, when all the people witness the thunder, there's a little interaction. They freak out, they get afraid. And then it says in verse 22, the Lord said to Moses, and it continues. All of them, God spoke all the words of the entire covenant. If you continue to go to chapter 21, he goes on, when an ox gores a man, if it gores a boy, this is all God speaking.
No,
all.
but no,
Yes.
it is divided from 18.
Christopher, there is no division.
There's a division.
No, there is no division.
All right,
There's nothing in the text. I'm sorry, but that is not the case.
I'm going to read it for you, right? So in 17 is where the 10 commandments finish, right? Where he finished with
They're not separated, Chris. This is what I keep trying to tell you. They're not. You have been told they're separated. They're not separated.
I'm going to read it for you, right? It's 17 talks
I just read it. It's on the screen. I just read it.
It's on your screen. I put it up here so I could see it. So I can't see it, right? So 17 ends with thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's stuff, right? Then 18 says, and all the people saw the thundering and the lightnings and the noise and the trumpets and the smoke and went up and saw it, and they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, else we die. And Moses said unto people, fear not, for God is come to prove you that ye will fear him before. And 21 says, and the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the darkness where God was. And God said unto Moses, thus shalt thou say. So everything after is what...
Keep going. No, keep going.
All right.
Don't stop there. Keep reading.
Right. And the Lord said unto Moses, thus...
Okay, so who's speaking? Who's speaking?
The writer is saying that...
Who is speaking in verse 22?
The writer is saying God spake to Moses here.
The Lord said to Moses...
unto Moses, right? He's not speaking to all the people. He said unto Moses, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven, right? So he's identifying here, God is telling Moses, right? Tell them, all you see that I spoke to you from heaven, meaning the things that were said before.
Christopher, don't interpret. Read the text. Don't interpret.
This is what it says.
But you're giving, but hang on. You're giving your interpretation of the text. Just read it.
All right. So God said unto Moses, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven.
Yep.
Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold.
Pause for a second. Which commandment is that?
Which commandment is that?
What is he saying? He says, you shall not make gods of silver.
Right. That is telling them this should not make gods.
So is this not important because this is him talking to Moses?
This is him telling Moses what he wants him to say, right?
Right. But this is still a part of what was given in the previous. This is God talking to Moses. Moses is the mediator.
Right,
this is just as important. This is not less important. This is not Moses making the laws. All of this is coming from the mouth of God.
I agree that it's coming from the mouth of God, but compared to the ones before where he was talking...
They're not compared. They're not compared, Christopher.
No,
there's no comparison.
No, just now, I am saying compared to him directly speaking from heaven to the people, as he said before, he is now speaking to Moses, as the scripture said, and God said to Moses, unto Moses. So he isn't speaking to the congregation anymore.
No, you're not right. Go back to, let me walk all the way back, and I'm going to do this one more time, okay? Because the scales are pretty heavy right now on your eyes. I'm going to go back one more time. And then I'm going to have to be done. You're going to have to read it. Maybe we'll come back during part 2, okay? Because I can't go too much further. Exodus 19, let's get all of the text right. Moses said to the Lord, he's up on the mountain, right? Exodus 19, verse 23. The people are not permitted to come up to Mount Sinai, for you yourself warned us, saying, set limits around the mountain and keep it holy. The Lord said to him, to Moses, go down, then come back up and bring Aaron with you. But do not let either the priests or the people break through to come up to the Lord. Otherwise, he will break out against them.
Did 19 read them?
So Moses went down to the people and told them, and then what happened? Then God spake these words.
That chapter 19 you reading?
Yes.
But the context,
literally the precursor to God speaking.
The context of chapter 19 is in verse 10.
What? Yeah, I know. He was up on the mountain. I get it. He was up on the mountain. He came back down. Moses did. Moses said to the Lord, don't permit. The Lord said to him, go down. So Moses went down.
No, but you have to understand the context, right? If we're talking about going back to the beginning, verse 10 and 11 says,
verse 25 says Moses went down to the people and told them.
Yes, but that's based on 10 and 11.
But Christopher, there's nothing in between verse 25 and chapter 20, verse 1 that says now, whatever you're saying, that now he's like all by himself and God's like saying something. There's nothing.
No, I'm saying chapter 19, the context is in verse 10 and 11, and it says this, right? It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes and be ready against the third day, for the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And
yes.
Right. So this is what Moses went down to do, to prepare them, right? And this is why they were not allowed to come
Christopher,
up the mountain.
What happened? Okay, this is the last thing I'm gonna mention, and then again, I do have to go. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
But Exodus 19:25. Okay.
25.
So Moses went down to the people and told them. In between verse 25 and chapter 20, verse 1, what do you think happened? Because there's nothing in the text that tells you anything that happened. Like if you're going to just rely on the text, you can't just insert something in there that like, oh, he ran back up to the mountain. There's nothing in the text in verse 25 of 19 into verse 1 of the next chapter. There's nothing in the text that says what you're claiming. You have to insert it. That's what's called eisegesis. You're inserting something in to the narrative that's not there. There's nothing in the text that says that. It literally, the very next thing that says is that God spoke these words. You don't have anything in between those verses to make the claim that, like, oh, this is like a separate thing. Moses went down, told the people, God spoke. That's what it says. Again, just reading what the text says, okay? And if you continue down to where he finishes his first speech, that's what's happening. This is a speech act. The first speech is the 10 words. You get down to verse where he finishes in verse 19 when all the people witnessed it and said to Moses, look, he's already down there. Moses is down there. The people are talking to him.
Right. I think the context of verse 25 is in 21, 22, and 23, even 24. This is what God was telling him to go down and do with the people. So
right,
then
but you understand my argument, right? You understand that there isn't anything in between these two verses that tells you that it's separate, different, special. There's nothing in the text that tells you that the next 10 words in Hebrew, okay, that the Decalogue is set apart, special. This is different. This is only written, and nothing in the text says that God wrote it. Nothing. he spoke it in Exodus 20. There's nothing in the text of chapter 20 that says he wrote it.
I agree with
So
you.
I'm just telling you that this is why I get so frustrated with anyone that does eisegete. You're inserting things on the text that are not there.
No, I'm actually
They're
taking
not present.
what it says.
No, chapter 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 says absolutely nothing about God writing the 10 Commandments in that section with his finger or any of it. It's not there.
It talks about him directly speaking to the people, and even
Correct.
reminding them
And
when
he spoke
Moses,
all of the laws. This is the part that
that's the 10.
this is the part that I need you to understand. This is the reason why Adventist theology is so different and abstract from the text, because you have to insert things on the text to make it say what Ellen White said and what the Adventist teaching
This is not
believes.
what Ellen White said. This is about what the Bible says. The Bible says,
But you're not saying what the Bible says, though.
Yeah, the Bible says God spoke to Moses.
Right. He spoke all the words. All of the law was spoken by God.
No.
God
spoke to the people directly.
Okay,
Then he spoke to
show
Moses.
me. Okay, last thing, Christopher. Show me one place in chapters 20. Show me one place in chapters 20 to 24 that says any of the law was given only by Moses and wasn't coming from God. Show me one place.
Any of the law that was only given by Moses?
No, show me one place that says Moses spoke this and it didn't come from God. Show me. Don't just say it. Show me. And I'll scroll on the screen. We get to 20. The Lord said to Moses, God is speaking right there. He continues to speak. But if the slave declares, he continues to speak. He's continuing to, this is all God speaking. Right. Every single one of this. All of this. There is nowhere in here that says Moses gives a command for the law. None of it. It's not present. Doesn't exist. None of it. You just keep going. This is all God speaking. God speaking. God speaking. This is what's called a theophany, when God shows up.
Look at 21.
21 where?
Verse 1.
21 and verse 1. These are the ordinances that you shall. This is God speaking.
God speaking to who?
To Moses. It says it right there in verse 22. Then the Lord said to Moses, thus you shall say to the people, you shall send them. You shall not make. This is all God speaking. All of it. You know this because there would be a break in the narrative where it would say, and Moses said, and it doesn't say it.
No, yeah, but verse 1 and 21 says, he is speaking to Moses, and this is what he's telling Moses to tell the people. But
right, but it comes from God, Christopher. Yeah, that's the point. This is the law from God.
Yeah, but Moses is the one who spoke it to the people, correct?
It doesn't matter. He's the mediator. It doesn't matter. It's from God. It's the law of God. It's God's covenant.
No, the difference I'm trying to get to is that the first 10, the 10 commandments wasn't spoken by Moses. It was spoken directly by God to the people. And then these things that you're showing here was God told Moses to tell the people. So the first 10.
But that's not, I know what you're saying, but what you're saying is not what the text says. And that's what I keep trying to show you, but you're blind to it. It's like you're not seeing it. You think that what you're saying is in the text, but it's not. And I don't know how to show you any different. There's nowhere in the narrative of chapters 20 to 24 where Moses is giving the law. There's nowhere in the text, okay?
Right. So you would agree there's this first verse and the other verse says God spoke unto Moses, right?
Yes, which means it's God's law.
Right.
And he is the originator of it.
Right.
It doesn't matter if someone else is speaking it to people. It's not Moses's law. It's God's law.
Right. I'm just trying to make the distinction between the ones that Moses spoke to.
But that's the problem. There is no distinction. You have been told there is no distinction. That's the problem. is
All
that
right.
you're coming to the text with an idea that there is a distinction.
In
There
Exodus
isn't.
20, verse 1, who is God speaking to here?
Exodus 20, verse 1.
Yeah, who is God speaking to? Moses or the people?
The text doesn't say, but the assumption going down to verse 18, okay, is that when the people witnessed it, the assumption is that it's spoken to Moses.
The assumption that is spoken to Moses.
But it doesn't, the text doesn't physically say in chapter 20 who God's speaking to. It just says that he speaks.
Yeah, it says that he speaks, and then 18 says, and all the people saw the thundering and heard the lightning and heard the trumpets and heard the smoke and they
Yeah.
said unto Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said, God was testing them, right? And the people stood afar off. And the Lord said unto Moses, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel. And then he gave this. So God spoke first, and the people say, listen, Moses,
So,
you go and speak with God.
so
That-
Christopher, I don't know how to tell this anymore, and I'm gonna have to bow out of this, okay? Because I've been pretty clear on the biblical text. I'm just gonna rehash what I said, okay? There's no biblical textual evidence to conclude that Moses wrote some laws and God wrote others. That is, you will not find a scholar that will make the claim that Moses wrote some of them and God wrote others. There's nothing in the text that says there's a separation. They're all coming from God, all of them, whether or not he is speaking it to Moses or whether or not he is speaking it to all the people, which, by the way, Moses is a part of the people. They're all coming from God. God is the originator of the law underneath the Mosaic covenant.
I agree, but I'm saying Moses spake a certain set of the laws, and
No,
God
he didn't. You're saying you agree, but no, he didn't. Moses, there was no like these are Moses's laws and these are God's laws.
I'm not saying these are Moses' laws, and I'm saying Moses mediated a certain section of the law, and
All of them. No, he mediated all of them. He
and
gave all of them.
it's 10.
He gave all of them. All 613. Okay. So I'm gonna have to bow out. I really actually am glad that you joined. I really appreciate the conversation. I would, if you're open to it, I would be more than happy for you to join the Discord channel and we can continue the conversation. I'd love to, because I continue to wrestle with this with you. That'd be great. I hope you'll come back again. I actually appreciated the conversation. Much of the audience that's listening appreciated it as well. I would encourage you to go back and look at maybe some of the live comments to see how other people are hearing your argument, and maybe that will help as well. Okay,
I'll look at that. No
Christopher,
problem.
thank you. Have a blessed Sabbath.
Thank you. Have a blessed Sabbath.
All righty. All right, friends. Well, that was fun. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation. We are going to do a part 2 of this. We will continue the conversation. By the way, I want to thank Christopher for being here. Thank you for kind of standing in and expressing your perspective. I would encourage all those present. I would encourage you to go read. Don't interpret. Go read Exodus. Read from chapters 16 through like 30. Well, just read it through at least 24 or 5. Okay. And get a good handle on everything that's going on. Okay. Because I think many times what we do and what we're taught to do is we're taught to see it a certain way, even though the text doesn't say that. And that's just, it's a bias. And when we go to the text, we look to support our bias. This is something that I have to deal with, just like you would have to deal with. Okay. Next conversation about the Sabbath, though, I am going to, because we kind of got into the New Testament, I am going to dive into what the early church fathers say. So we'll go into that. And yeah, appreciate you all. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate the time. Do like, subscribe. Huge shout out to the members that are supporting the channel, as well as those that are supporting the Patreon account. Thank you so much for your support. Would love to have you join the Discord channel as well. Be safe, be blessed, enjoy your weekend, and continue to rest in Christ and the work of redemption that He has done for us. Be safe, be blessed, and we'll see you next time, okay?